And at what point did you get in trouble?
I was about 30 years old, and I had the great idea at that point to smoke meth, and it made the worst decision I ever made in my life.
What was that thing that switched and you're like, all right, I'm done. I need to figure this out?
Life taking place. At 36 years old, all my friends are having families, they're excelling in life, and here I am still stuck in the same cycle of having to start over when I get out.
What are some of the things you notice the most that men have problems with that you work with?
Community, tribe. A lot of guys like myself or like these guys have been lone wolves for a long time.
When you help someone find purpose, what are some of the things you might tell someone?
Just being disciplined in life. It's like we're all grown men today, so it's like no matter what situation occurs, like we know what the right answer is.
What's going on, y'all? My name is Vincent Vargas. I'm the host of the Time to Head North podcast, brought to you by the North Group. Security refined by intelligence. What's up, big dog? How you doing?
What's happening? Good, brother. Good, man. Blessed. How you doing?
Good, man. Well, thank you for joining me on the Time to Head North podcast, brought to you by the North Group is Security Refined by Intelligence. This podcast is normally focused on personal security, corporate security, just different things in that kind of space. But I thought an inspirational story of someone who started their life in getting in trouble and then now in a position where you're changing other lives, I thought would be pretty awesome to have you on here. First, I'd love to start with just a small introduction of your name, and then as well as just kind of what you're doing now, and then I'll start asking some questions, brother. So please, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Absolutely appreciate it. Name's Anthony Autry. I grew up in Los Angeles. Currently reside down in San Diego. And what I'm doing is I'm just helping men these days in all sorts of ways, from breaking out of addiction to just becoming the man that their family deserves and everywhere in between. So it's just a real blessing today.
And what I thought was fascinating is that there's a parallel between, so a lot of the people who work in security have a background in either law enforcement or military. And there's a parallel between men in those spaces and those who have been incarcerated. And when they get out, the parallel of the brotherhood of just finding purpose and finding, themselves again. And let's start from the beginning of you growing up in LA. Tell me how you grew up, man.
Well, so I was actually really fortunate. I was born to an upper middle class family. Was actually in the Palisades, which house I grew up in burned down, and high school. A lot of my family has lost their places there, but it was a good neighborhood. And father owned a construction company. We were pretty well off. Unfortunately, at the age of 7, right around Christmas Eve, actually, my parents decided that they were going to split. My father took off, was still present, but that break within the family unit really caused some major issues. Still played a lot of sports, was involved in the Boy Scouts, actually eventually did graduate and get my Eagle Scout. But that caused a lot of problems in the home. Addiction started at a pretty early age, 10 years old, was smoking weed, drinking alcohol. Fairly typical, but pretty young age, progressed pretty quickly from that age moving forward. By the time I was in my teenage years, had gone through pharmaceuticals, hallucinogenics, cocaine, stayed away from the heroin and the meth because a lot of my older buddies had a couple of their older siblings dying, overdosing, stuff like that. So played a lot of sports, stayed within that. However, when I got to high school, started hanging out with the real, by the time I got to high school, it was a public high school. I got kicked out of all the private schools when I was younger. So by the time I was high school, I was hanging out with kids from it was a integrated high school. It was Palisades High. And so a lot of my buddies were from the inner city. So started hanging out with a lot of buddies from like mid-city LA. Right there by like the Rampart district. So back then, the late 90s was a pretty active neighborhood.
Yeah, I grew up in the San Fernando Valley in the late 90s as well, bro. And that was like, I try to explain to people that it's really my wife who's very sheltered, my kids who are sheltered, right? They've all been in private school their whole lives pretty much. But I tell them, like, when I grew up, was real active in the gang communities, and it was still pretty early on where I don't know how to explain it to some people who don't understand, but like a lot of the Latino gangs were still rivals with each other. There wasn't like the Trece wasn't involved at the time, right? The 13 didn't come to play where everyone kind of had a truce between each other. So it was like every street was a different clique of a different gang. And we had to really mind what we wore, the hats we wore, the colors we wore, or else you could be, repping the wrong clique, and which could get you in some serious trouble. But it was a common practice when you grew up when someone would hit you up, and when they say hit you up, it's like, hey, where you from, right? That whole thing, and trying to explain to people like, yeah, you had to stand up for yourself, whether you were in a gang or not. You had to say something. You had to be like, I'm from nowhere, bro. You got a problem? Like, what's up? It was this weird, like, you just grew up in that time, man, and it was very easy to get involved and to slowly kind of go down the wrong path, and you found yourself kind of going down a path that that kind of led you even further, right?
Absolutely. It was quickly, it's funny you mentioned it's like how quickly you go from, like I wanted to be a part of something, and I described like where I came from. That's a very upscale neighborhood. I mean, I was going to school with like celebrity kids before that point in time, playing sports with them. And then quickly, all of a sudden, I found myself in the neighborhood, and at like 16, 17, 18, guys are putting in work for the neighborhood. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so they're catching bodies and all that stuff. So it was like, had one close friend of mine that I grew up, when we were a little bit younger, we were in a crew, and then he ended up getting from the neighborhood, and he just turned out to be a straight killer, man. I mean, he was getting like groups of people to move out of the neighborhood because it was getting that bad.
Wow.
And yeah, it was pretty, it got real quick. And, guys ended up missing, guys were getting locked up for, all day for, life. And, at that point in time, I kind of needed to make a change. So fortunately I went ahead and moved. I got out of Los Angeles. I think it was 2001. Right at that point in time, my buddy ended up being on like the FBI's most wanted list with Whitey Bulger, so
Yeah.
yeah.
So you went down to San Diego? Is that what you went to from that point?
No, actually, I'd moved out of state. I went to Arizona to go to college, but just like anything else, I took my addiction with me, and so just found myself there on campus, still, minorly peddling drugs. My roommate was from Nogales, so how that goes down there. We were running back and forth to Nogales, across the train tracks and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
yeah, so I spent about a couple years there and just realized that I wasn't making any progress. So I again just made the geographical change, thinking that was going to change something. Went all the way out to Texas. At that point in time, still couldn't get into school, but started working. Started working for a sales company, which quickly got into management and started running a sales company there for a few years, which turned out to be pretty good. But at that point in time, I've been gone for 6.5 years, missed my family, and I wanted to come back to California. So came back. My brother had started a construction company here in San Diego. That was January 2007. So came back and helped him start expanding this residential / commercial construction company.
And at what point did you get in trouble? What was the last straw for you?
So that's when I got San Diego. We actually had a chance to get into LA. We were building. My father was a super on some custom spec houses in Bel Air, Brentwood area. So we got on to do. We were generals, but we did a lot of hardscape masonry work. So we got on to do like so a pool equipment sub slab, retaining wall, just some stuff in the backyard, which ended up growing into doing large, whole backyards, pools. We went from house to house in this investment developing group, which was going really well, man. We were making lots of money, spending lots of money, which was ridiculous. But I got hooked up actually with a girl that I knew from high school, and I jumped right into a relationship with this person, not really knowing what her current state was. She was a real pretty girl. She used to model for a lot of beer companies, Bud Light and all that stuff. And then found myself in a toxic relationship real quick. She would get drunk one night. Basically, long story short, she was drunk and started attacking me. This was in January 2008. At that point in time in Los Angeles, if there was a call, the dude was getting, they're taking the dude. That's just how it was. So unfortunately, I hadn't been in the system yet, and so I got scared into taking a plea deal, and that's when the whole thing started. Got out, did my 3 years violation free. However, there was a couple months extension for some restitution that needed to be paid. And at that point in time, I was about 30 years old, and I had the great idea at that point to smoke meth. Don't ask me why. I think it was the fact that my brother, me and him kind of parted ways a little bit. I was on my own and just made the worst decision I ever made in my life. And from that point on, it was that's when the real movie started. It just quickly turned into a life of crime. Lost my job. They told me I was always showing up to work on time, never missed work. I was a real functioning addict. And they told me, hey, you need to go to rehab or you don't have a job. And so I said, well, I haven't missed. I'm not late. I guess I don't have a job. So lost the job, then lost the place, turned into a life of crime. And it was actually not long before I ended up finding myself on LAPD's Pacific Division Most Wanted list. So I was taking it on all sorts of madness going on through the city. I was from getting locked up, doing a few months, getting a drug program, going to the program, getting kicked out of the program, being on the run, and the vicious cycle really started at that point in time, from 30 to 36.
You did a long stint in prison at one point, correct? What was the longest
Correct.
stint?
So it was actually just recently, all that madness had come to an end at 36. I always found myself in a San Diego jail cell, and it had been numerous consecutive holiday seasons I had been locked up for. And so I just realized a light bulb went off. It was like the common denominator was my addiction, plain and simple. It has me in places, around people, doing certain things that always, at the end of the day, lead me to a jail cell. So I got clean, I got sober, and I had about almost a year clean. And U.S. Marshals showed up actually to the program that I was in, and said they had a federal warrant. And there was a federal indictment for me. Was something that had occurred 3 years prior within my madness time, and chose to pick me up on it. So it was a controlled buy. So it was a distribution charge. It was a controlled buy for 2 ounces. So
For 2 ounces?
For 2 ounces, So
Man.
there was a lot of stuff in my madness times. There were some indictments that me and my brother just kind of barely dodged. Stuff in San Diego, also in LA. And so I think at that point in time, I was done. I was out the game. And so I don't know if they thought they were like, hey, we got to get this guy for something. But it was, they have a 50-gram mandatory minimum for meth. And so it was 2 ounces is just over the 50 grams. And that can carry a mandatory 10 years. And it was also criminal forfeiture, which was a mandatory 10 years. So friend of the family, Jan Ronis, super attorney down here lives in Coronado. He, defended the Arellano brothers.
Yeah.
He's friend of the family. And so got a hold of Jan. I was like, Jan, what's up, dude? And he was like, bro, you're hit, man. He's like, I was like, what do you mean? I was like, help me out. And he was like, bro, no, he's like, only thing you can do is sign. If you sign right now, they probably won't impose the mandatory minimums, and that's your best shot. And I was like, really, for 2 ounces? And he was like, yep. He was like, you'll get less than 10. I was like, does that mean 2 or 8? And he was like, just sign, you'll get less than 10. I was like, okay. So I signed. They gave me 77 months. And so I got the RDAP program, which is residential drug abuse program. It's about a year program during your time. And that gives me a year off. So I ended up doing a little over 4 years. It was like 4.5 years. But it was a tough pill to swallow after I had gotten clean. It was on the straight and narrow, but take accountability for it, something I did. So I realized today that that's only when somebody can truly make change, is like taking complete ownership of something. And so I just said, okay, I'm going to take this time. I know how to program. I've been doing time. So I'm just going to use this time to work on my personal development. And so when I get out, I can hit the ground running. So that's exactly what I did. I got in great physical shape. I got under 10% body fat, counted my macros longhand in federal prison, and got a college degree while I was in there. The list goes on and on. I was a mentor in that RDAP program. So I was up there reading Jocko's Discipline Equals Freedom to a whole unit full of dudes. And when I got out and met Jocko over at Victory here in San Diego, I was telling him about that. He was like, "Bro, that's badass." I was like, "Absolutely, man." So
That's what was it? What was the, what was that thing that switched and you're like, all right, I'm done. I need to figure this out.
yeah, it was when I was in San Diego, and in that madness, in during those 6 years. When I started smoking meth, I was on the run. My brother, there was a real tragic thing that happened. I was locked up in LA County Jail. I was out at South Yard at Wayside, and it was on a Sunday. They told me to come outside, and there's no movement on Sunday. I was like, I go outside, and they were like, "You need to contact home." And I hadn't really known what that meant at that point in time, and usually means somebody has passed in your family. So I called my dad, and he said my brother was dead. And the day before, he was murdered. He was shot and killed by an employee of ours of the construction company. The guy just pulled up. They had had a quarrel. My brother had laid him off. Their egos got involved. Were threatening each other. He knew where my brother lived. Pulled up, got out, and just started unloading some barrages of bullets on him, and died right there. So through that taking place and me being locked up a year and a half after that, I wasn't able to go to the funeral or any of that stuff. Between that and then just life taking place, at 36 years old, all my friends are having families. They're, excelling in life. And here I am still stuck in the same cycle of having to start over when I get out. I just had enough, man. I just really feel like I had an epiphany with God, man. I was going to church service there out by George Bailey in San Diego, and just broke down. Hadn't really broken down since my parents split, and then when my brother passed, those were like the only two times in my life. And I just gave it all up. Really felt like I was talking with God, and I just got on the path at that point in time, and I haven't turned back since.
It's incredible, man. It's awesome to hear these stories, man, where people just kind of turn their lives around. And, and like I said, the similarities between anyone who's incarcerated to those who served is very similar. And I want to ask you, like, you've worked with a lot of veterans now, right? You've worked with a lot of veterans now. Tell me about the similarities of that.
Bro, the parallels are endless. I believe if my addiction didn't take over, I would have gone that route. I got my Eagle Scout. I mean, I should have jumped right in. I would have been automatically promoted and et cetera. So when I was in there, I started reading a lot of books of a lot of guys that served. I read Adam Brown's story. His book was really, really hit home because, he struggled with addiction, Team 6 guy, went through addiction, made it in, and had just a lot of stuff, with his whole story, which was really moving. So I just dove into a lot of guys that served. A lot of guys struggle with addiction. It doesn't discriminate. It touches everybody. You're gone from your family. The whole transitioning back into society is a whole nother issue, a whole nother beast within itself. So I figured out all these parallels, and I just started just absorbing, and really made it a goal, or wanted to, when I got out, to get around some of these guys, because I just really felt like we were the same. I just had gone down a different path. And so it's been great. I got out, and like I'd mentioned, I got taken over to Victory. My brother had known one of the guys that backed the gym, so they actually welcomed me with open arms there. I know Dean Lister from back in the day in the San Diego scene. So I seen Dean, and that's how I ended up meeting Jocko. But then I've also had the opportunity. I've met a buddy of mine's Chief Warrant in the teams. And so he was actually taking me over to the NSW ATC, new base at the training center they got. And I was doing the combatant class with a bunch of the team guys, which was sweet. I don't know. I'll just put that out there, but usually don't talk about too many things. But it's been endless. A good buddy of mine's a SEER instructor. And so Had the opportunity to help a lot of these guys. I went and spoke at a recovery center just recently that was for first responders. It turned out to be a bunch of law enforcement guys, a lot of correctional officers as well. And so at first, everybody was pretty standoffish. They were kind of sitting there with their arms folded. And after I kind of told them my story, had some really good feedback. A lot of guys. There was one guy that was from LA division, and was talking about all the division within the departments, all the kind of, groups that take place. And just kind of said that I helped him with some of his PTSD. Got a lot of good feedback from a bunch of different guys there. And it's just kind of got it off and running. I've been helping a few guys. There's a guy out in Arizona who's a ex-narcotics officer. I've been helping him now kind of get his thing going because he wants to get out there and share his story. So I've been coaching him. There's just a lot of different stories.
What are some of the things you notice the most that men have problems with that you work with? You work with a lot of these men. What is like one of the key things that you see that they're struggling with?
Community, tribe, having a lot of guys like myself or like these guys have been lone wolves for a long time, and haven't had that pack, haven't had that tribe. So it's really having other individuals that have gone through a lot of similar things, and just being able to have guys to relate with. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is guys struggle with not having the community big time.
Right. That brotherhood, right?
Absolutely.
It's crazy. Brotherhood. When I get a lot of veterans come to me, they're missing their community and they're missing purpose. And
that's
an interesting one.
Right behind is purpose, man. First comes community, but then it's purpose. It's their why, and then numerous other things follow. But 100%.
And so, what are some of the things you help when you help someone find purpose? What are some of the things you might tell someone?
I just get down to the basics, bro. Like what really worked for me was like getting like my foundation, just like the bare bones minimum, like just being disciplined in life. It's like we're all grown men today. So it's like no matter what situation occurs, like we know what the right answer is, so it's like just making the choice, making the right decision, regardless of whatever our emotions are telling us, whatever our feelings are telling us, whatever we're going through. It's taking all that madness up here, putting that aside and just doing what we're supposed to do. So just really get down to foundations. Yeah. 100%.
You work with a lot of guys who are struggling with fitness. What would you tell some of our, we have a lot of law enforcement, a lot of former military who listen to the podcast. And what are some of the, I guess some of the basics you help them with right now, just on getting back into fitness?
It's just nutrition is the number one. That's the most common issue. Guys not knowing exactly. It's all data, really. It's numbers. So it's really just knowing what you're consuming. It's just like having data on a mission or anything. You gotta have your data. So you got to know what you're consuming, how much you're consuming, what your macronutrients, which are your fats, your carbs, and your protein. Just by focusing on those three numbers and what your caloric intake is, if you know what you're consuming, then you're able to do whatever you want. If you drop your total caloric intake down a little bit, you put yourself in a calorie deficit, you're going to cut weight, even if you're not working out, because you're just below your BMR, which is like your basal metabolic rate, how many calories your body burns at a resting state. So it's really simple. You know what your BMR is, and if you need to cut weight, you just set your calories and your macronutrients at a deficit. If you're trying to bulk and get size, you go to a surplus. But I always recommend first you go in a deficit, you peel all the fat off first. And then if you reverse it correctly, if you build back better properly, you'll stay lean and you'll get muscle mass. So, but it's just knowing the data. It's all numbers, man. So I teach guys what their numbers are. They learn about it. And it's a lifelong skill they can pass on to their kids and all that.
That's good, man. And then also there's a form of accountability, right? If you're the one mentoring them, you got to keep them doing their thing, right?
Absolutely. That's the biggest thing is accountability. One of my buddies, a country boy, he rodeo guy. He's actually big under Grant Cardone. He's one of their main testimonials. I'll be seeing him in Vegas here next week. He calls me his accountability buddy, Yeah, but that's what it's all about is accountability, man. At the end of the day, we all need to be called on our stuff.
Yeah. What I know, like prison is probably not like a place where you want to learn lessons, but what is probably one of the what are some lessons you might have learned in prison?
Absolutely. Well, luckily these are things that I was taught when I was a kid. I was raised in a good home. So I was, my mother, her family's from the South. My father's Sicilian. So between those two dynamics, I was raised with a lot of like morals, ethics, values, to respect other people, to have manners, and just with those two right there, having respect and having manners going into prison is a huge thing. It's everything. Like there's a universal law of respect. If you respect other people, you're going to get respect back. Also you must respect yourself as well, by treating yourself in a certain way. So, and then also just having morals, having manners, man. If you bump into somebody, you say, "Excuse me." It's the simple things that my parents taught me when I was young that I applied in there, and it paid dividends big time.
It's funny how many people don't realize how inmates in prison have manners and like ridiculous manners. As a prison guard, I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. But everybody, you bump somebody, say, "Excuse me." Everybody has manners. Everyone has respect. And when you step outside of that is when you actually become a target to kind of a correction, if it's a beat down or whatever it is. But even as a corrections officer, those of us who understood that would treat even inmates with respect, because also we know that we're in their house in the sense of it's one of me and 40 of them. I'm in your space. I'm going to have a mutual respect in a way.
Huge.
And that goes a long ways. We had a
100%.
couple corrections officers, we called them kickstarters, where they'd go in and act like they owned the place, right? And they come in with this attitude, and it's like, man, you're gonna get yourself hurt one day, because that's how you lose respect for these individuals who are doing a hard time. They're gonna be here for the rest of their life. Don't make their life more uncomfortable than it is already, right? And so, manners goes a long way in prison.
Huge, brother. Absolutely. Just from doing time and having a decent head on my shoulders, I ended up finding myself in positions to where, a lot of the time I'd be a rep or a key holder. And so I ran a pretty tight program with our guys. It was, standard California program. If you're under 36, it's mandatory workout. You got to keep your bed area clean, you're showering, all these little things. But I would always run a tight program with my guys, and by doing so, it made all the other races step their game up as well. And so everything ran pretty smoothly. And when that happens, of course, as you're mentioning, there's a lot of respect. And so I'd get a lot of support from the correctional officer or the sheriffs wherever I was at.
Yeah.
Orange County Jail was pretty sweet. I was there at Theo Lacey, and I was running a unit there. And we just ran a good program there, took care of business, did what we had to do. I'd usually give guys workout break-offs first, depending on the infraction. I wouldn't just straight like go to putting hands on people, I would work on building guys up versus just breaking them down. But we had the unit running so good that we had the TVs turned on super early, man, like especially on Sunday for the football games. So guys would come in here and that's like not standard program. Guys would come in and they'd be like, "Man, what's going on here, man? Like, how do you got things like that?" You know what I mean? And I'm like, man, it's just, so dudes would come in questioning things, but it's like some guys don't understand. There's huge respect right there.
Interesting space where, like, look, you don't make my life a living hell, then I won't make yours a living hell. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And the corrections officers, if you have some guys, and so those who are listening probably don't understand that in the prison system, there's kind of pod bosses, if I can word that in a way. There's people that run the pod, and us as corrections officers, you find out real fast if you need things changed in the pod. You go directly to them and talk to them for change. If someone is being disrespectful, if there's a new guy there that doesn't respect kind of the order of how things move, you can go to a pod boss. You can go to like the head guy and say, "Hey, this dude's giving me shit," and that will get corrected within the next time you come into that pod. There will be an apology. There will be an apology from that individual to say, "Sorry about that, CO, my bad," And so the politics are important in the prison system for keeping everyone safe in a sense, but it's a very interesting space where I noticed, the inmates. I mean, look, that's your guys' home. You're sitting there all day, but you observe and notice everybody, and you know which corrections officers you can get away with certain things from, some things you can't. And is this really, right? Am I right?
100%, man. The things that you're speaking on, you would only know by experience, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, 100%, man. You're spot on with it all. It goes both ways, you know?
Yeah.
It's 100%. And so
There's
it's,
something that I want to ask you now, because I think those of you who are listening who are law enforcement officers, probably currently law enforcement officers, I, you know, as inmates who work out, they get ready. They're always in, and they always try and look good, smell good, all those things, because it's respect for themselves and they're the person they live with, whoever their cellie is. But they pay attention to us law enforcement officers and who dresses sharp and who looks good and who looks in shape. I had this one inmate who was in SEG, right? He was a 23-hour lockdown. He was in there he was part of a Nuestra Familia, a big, kind of a Latin mafia, right? And he mentioned one day, he goes, "Why do you always shine your boots and iron your pants? Why are you always looking so sharp?" I said, "Bro, because I have respect and I want to make sure I come in here and you guys know that I'm not playing around. I take this job serious." And he gave me kind of a nod. He goes, "Yeah," he goes, "We notice." And when he said that, I was like tripped out by it, because I was like, "Oh, I didn't do it for them. I did it kind of for me and for my, to represent myself well, right? I come from the Ranger Battalion, right? Our whole thing is neatness, dress, and care of equipment, and, set the examples for others to follow." And so I carried myself, but that went a long ways, because this one dude in segregation who noticed that I shine my boots and I polish my, that I shine my boots, that I iron my pants and everything. The word got out to the rest of the prison, and everybody knew that I was not the guy to fuck with. You know what I mean? And it was this interesting thing that, like, I could come into a room and you would see the change in the room. Like, hey, they called me Street Marine. It was like this nickname. I ended up finding out they all called me Street Marine because I was all tatted up, right? I was tatted up, and I wasn't even a Marine, bro. But the misconception of military, they just called me a Street Marine, and so there was the kind of a title they kind of threw around, but. Then there would be cell extractions, dude. And, I'd be turtled up. I'd be in the whole suit. And I'd go in and get dudes. And later they'd be like, "Hey, was that you?" And I'd tell them, like, "Yeah, that was me." Like, "All right." And it was this kind of real interesting mutual respect in the space where they knew, like, I would do my job. I won't step outside of my job. But also, man, I was someone that they can talk to. And like, "Hey, CO, I need to talk to my unit manager. This is happening." Like, "Yeah, bro, I got you. Like, I'll take care of it." And it was really interesting. And I don't know where my initial thought came from or why I did that. It was more like, I guess I've always felt that in life I could have easily made one bad decision and been on the other side of that door. So the empathy of, hey, we might be different in sense, but we're also similar. That I could have made one choice that let me in here. And so I guess I respected the space that I'm here to work. Here's the rules. I follow them. You do your job. I'll do mine, and I get the hell out of here. You know what I mean? And it went a long ways. And I want to say, like, inmates, you guys pay attention to every way someone dresses and carries themselves, correct?
Absolutely, 100%. We don't have anything else to do. I mean, we got other things to do, but that's our world in there, so you're always paying attention to every single little thing, and how you operated, how you did is the right way to do it. It's going to make things easier for everybody. Guys that come in, like you said, hot shot guys or whatever it may be, it's only going to cause them more work in the long run. It's only going to make things harder for them trying to get things done with guys. Guys aren't going to cooperate. They're going to do everything that we can or they can to give that person a hard time. So that's really the best way to go about it, from my personal experience all the years.
Yeah, and I think it's important for law enforcement to care about what they look like, care about their fitness levels, care about how they show up to work, present, because I think that gives the officer presence, a aura about them that makes other people kind of sit with respect or question whether they're going to try and test that dude that day or not.
100%. And it kind of get back also, like, how I work with guys. It's like, it's foundations, and it's also us being in great physical shape. You know what I mean? So if guys come in there, they're polished, they're pressed, you know what I mean? But they got a big belly on them. All the other stuff goes out the window. If you got a big belly on you and you're out of shape, none of that matters, man. You all, because it just shows like how you respect yourself or not. And that's not there. So,
but yeah, that's a great point, bro, is that, shine boots and iron pants go out the window if you look out of shape, right? Because
100%.
I think what I always think about the officer presence is so important, and that's not even just like in the law enforcement side of things. As a man, as a family, as the lead of the family, right? Those kids are watching, and they're paying attention, and they see that, dad's sitting on the couch not doing nothing, or dad's getting up, dad's working on his fitness. Even if you're not like the most in shape dude, the fact that you're working on your fitness, I think that gets ingrained in your kids that he's always working to improve.
100%. Some of the best memories I have of my father and I was me and him going to the gym. We used to go to the gym. I lived with him temporarily in my high school years for a couple of years before I was out on my own at 17. But we used to get up before school and we would go to the gym. So he taught me, I learned how to work out from him, which has been a lifelong, tool to have. But those are some of the best memories that I have, was working out with my dad. He still goes to the gym to this day. 82 years old, man.
That's
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, that's a gift that keeps on giving, right? I try and teach my kids that. I always have like a home gym, and I try and get them, even in my house now, my 15-year-old son, when he makes mistakes, he does dumb things, right? And his punishment is always push-ups. You know what I'm saying? His punishment is always push-ups.
Good.
And in our house, one of the terms that we use is this punishment or improvement? And it's something that he starts to understand. Like, look, you know what I'm saying? Don't take offense to how I'm correcting you, because this is just making you better, right? Like, because he can be emotional about it. I'm like, no, hold up. I can punish you. I can treat you like, with a punishment. I can spank you. I can put hands on. I can take your car. I can do all the things that dads can do. Or can I make you better and do the push-ups and change the mindset of what this outcome is, right? Like, yeah, there's a lot of things I could have done, but instead I chose to make you a stronger person. So respect that and take this take this improvement and put a smile on your face with that shit.
I like it. I'm gonna have to adopt that one. We're working that way. I just recently got married, so we're in the process. You know what I mean? But neither one of us have children. Never been married. It's been a real blessing, and really looking forward to it.
Yeah, man.
So
we're just thinking that.
One.
Dude, hey, look, it took me many years to figure that one out, because I used to be a punishment type of dad, right? And it's all good. I've grown as a man myself. But yeah, when I started to try to really understand, like, how can I correct him with making him a better person and not, build animosity towards parenting, right? Because we could all build on animosity. And look, my dad punished me and he put the whooping to me, and I love the man. But it's a different generation, and for some reason, you got to find a way to inspire them through these corrections, right? You have to mentor them more. In a sense, it's a really weird time, man, because I never thought of it as a soldier. As a soldier, you can crush me and I wouldn't say shit. I just take it, And then as I became a drill sergeant, I realized that they couldn't handle that no more. The culture has shifted so far that we can't sit here and be a tyrant to individuals. They don't handle it well emotionally. They actually breaks them, right? You almost take away their spirit when you do that. So instead, you have to almost lead them by building up their character, building up their, building rapport with them, and then also building respect. They have to learn how to respect you, which is crazy, because normally you just be like, you respect me, right? Now it's like, I have to earn the respect, right? Like, that's crazy. But it really becomes a space, as I was raising young men in combat, was to get them to trust me and respect me so much so that if I said jump, they said how high. That's the level of respect I had to have from them, a level of trust I had to have from them, that, like, as dad in this house and as dad in combat, I would never ask you to do something I wouldn't do myself. And I've proven that, undeniable proof of that. And so that's how I have to lead my household. I lead my household like I would lead my soldiers in war. And now it's like, well, I don't have to punish you. I need to make you better. Let's get better.
I like it 100%. It's funny because that's actually how I would run my program when I was in there, and I'd have the keys. I would be a rep, is I would be building guys up. You know what I mean? Having them do better. I would always have them doing workouts versus just having guys put hands on them. It's building these guys up, teaching them to be better, and building that trust. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. And then in my house, though, there is a threshold where I will put hands on you still.
That's good. I think it's necessary. I grew up, I used to get it from my father as well. So, I'm from that era as well. And I think that's kind of a thing that's missing, today. is part of what's wrong with things. You know, there's a way to do things, and yeah, I think that's a big issue today, though. I think that plays a major part.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like I said, there is a threshold. You know, like it's a way bigger threshold than it used to be. But if like my son did something egregious to my wife or one of his sisters, I would check him. You know what I mean? I'd have to check him, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know,
Kids don't, you know, kids may not understand. Like if, you know, if it's a small child and they're like, when you're on a bridge and the kid gets close and he's almost going over the bridge or something that's like a life, something that's super important, but they just don't really comprehend, you know?
yeah,
And then also, you know, women and stuff like that. Yes, sir. That's not
yeah, yeah, yeah.
a
There's a
big no-no.
threshold. Well, man,
Sure.
I think it's cool that you're helping a lot of men. I think it's inspiring to see that you've kind of turned your life around and now you're in a position to serve others. I find that like serving others is therapeutic, but also it fills my cup as well. And so watching you do that and been watching your social media, man, I really appreciate you just taking the time to tell your story.
Absolutely, 100%. That's you know, it's funny because that's where I came out with. Had no idea of what I'd be doing today, but I came out with the mindset of wanting to be of service. How can I give back? You know, I was thinking, hey, when I get back to San Diego, you know, I'll see if there's some at-risk kids that I can speak to, whatever I can do to be of service. And so I still hold that mindset today. So if there's anybody out there that has any opportunity or something for me where I can be a service, I can come speak to guys, I can speak to kids, whatever it may be. If my story, me sharing or talking or volunteering and helping out, I'm all for it. So I still have that mindset today. However I can give back and be of service is a big thing for me.
Awesome. Well, tell the audience where they can find you, man, if they want to reach out.
Absolutely. Biggest is just on Instagram. That's my main thing. It's at unchained_fit, unchained_fit. And I respond to everything personally there. It's all me. I don't have any VAs. I don't have, you know, so if you reach out to me, I'll get back to you there personally. And yeah, I just want to be of service, man. Any way I can help out, I'm full sending it, bro. Let's get it.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate you. Thank you for your time, man.
Absolutely. Appreciate you.